Hey, folks, welcome back to The Pulse. It's been a couple minutes since I've been on stream, and I wanted to say hello to you, reach out to you, and say, you know what? Do not let your heart be troubled. It is 2:45 Central Texas time. My name is Matt. This is Crypto Heartbeat. And we're back again with some great friends in the chat. But today we're talking about the chaos business model. A lot's going on in the world, as you are well aware, and you're like, wow, if there's anything that's true, it's uncertain. Everybody was looking forward to just a week or so ago. Man, is this the beginning of the bull market? Is this going to be Uptober? Hmm. Well, things change quickly. And the question is, what and how should we think about it? So the next 2 days, today and tomorrow, I'll be doing streams as it relates to what's going on in the Middle East and really how that really is a reflection of some pretty interesting forces in this world. Then on Friday, we'll dig into the spiritual side of things with Steve Sagg. So, really excited about that. I'm going to bring on Steve actually tomorrow for his commentary. You're not going to want to miss that one because we're going to really talk about the conflict. And, there's some really interesting things I want to bring up today, but I want to talk to you today about this idea of everything being out of balance and in chaos, and that it is actually a business model for many people. There's a guy named George Soros who's made chaos his business model. And I want to dive into something that I don't think you have seen before, and that is what came before this war. And there's one piece of information that was news to me that was a real surprise, and I'm sure played into these attacks and what's potentially happening. Because there's what I've discovered is there's a lot of people who aren't telling the truth. Let's see who's in the chat, and then we will get into the content today. My online ghost is number one, pointing to the star, the lone star, the guiding star. David Lee with the star is in the chat as well from Southwestern Indiana. This is the guy who always shows up. He's always sharing the love, giving the hug. And you know what? Honestly, the fact that David Lee's here is a part of the theme of Crypto Heartbeat. What is this all about? What's this channel all about? Well, one, it's family friendly. That's nice. Two, it's really about encouraging you and pointing out and examining the heart that is at the core of our community. It's really the key to this whole thing. And if you think about, I did an interview with Richard Hart, and what did he say? The end game is people. So that's what it's about. If that's the end goal, why don't we talk about the end goal? Because the end goal isn't where's Lambo or when's Lambo, although somebody will have a Lambo. But it's the whole process in this journey together in community that I'm so enamored with. And I think it's important to point it out because every great story is about a man who wants something, and in the process of going out to get it, he finds something greater. And that's what this is really all about. And David Lee knows that stuff in spades. Sam Kemp knows it as well. What is going on? And then Drix, I was on the Texan tailgate on Sunday, and Drix showed up. No camera, just the voice. He's just, he's just cracking off a piece for us. One thing at a time. Next thing you know, maybe I'll get Drix on this channel. Wouldn't that be nice? Get a little interview with Drix. Now, Drix is a complex person who's not only a musician, but an audio engineer and has some pretty amazing heart for people. And boy, I think that'd be a good thing to tell the story of on Crypto Heartbeat. So maybe we can coerce Drix into coming on the channel for an interview at some point. I think that'd be really, really cool. NT Fryer, what is going on? Greetings all. Thanks for being here. Hexon Show, good afternoon. All right, so let's jump into it, and let's. I want to show you this. This is pretty interesting. And if you don't mind, do the whole thing: the like, the commenting, the subscribing, the sharing. That'd be good because it's important what I'm about to share. So I'll do an intro to it, and then I'm going to get into the specific document that I want you to see. But I want to talk to you today about this idea of that chaos is actually a business model. And if you think about what we see as chaos is in many, many cases manufactured. And what we see as keeping people off center or locked down or not in a position of authority or control, people emotionally out of control, all of these things, not knowing which way is up, people that are being, challenged to hate one another. That is, that's the MO. Why? Because we want this asymmetry. That's where the opportunity is. I mentioned George Soros. That's his whole business model, right? Creating these disturbances and chaos. And in that, you can extract value, right? We call it volatility in the crypto space and in the markets. But that's what you want. You want to shake it up. You want to be able to get some arbitrage. We're being arbitraged, folks. We are the thing that people are reaching into our pockets to get the money. And this is this system that we're in is bound to collapse. And what we're doing here in crypto to me is so much of an amazing opportunity for us to write this thing. And when I say write it, I don't just mean, well, the people that don't have money now, or that you just get rich. No, there's actually something more fundamental going on that is about us as a civilized society. It's us as, spiritual and human beings. And that's at the core of this. You're like, really, is all of that stuff at stake? Yeah, it really is. This freedom of speech, freedom of movement stuff. Yeah. Yeah. True DeFi. Yeah. Does it free the captives? Yeah. There's a really good chance it can. There's a lot of things that have to come into place, but I see those things lining up. And of course, I see the volatility and the chaos in this world. And I see those who have a business plan based on that, that leverage, right? Getting you off center. They want to use that lever and pull you off center. They want to create chaos. And that's where they can either operate in darkness or they can get an advantage on you, right? Keep you off center, make you not think straight. That's really the big key to all that stuff. David Lee says the Drix is a gentleman in every sense of the word. There you go. Anthony Munoz, the youngest billionaire on the planet. That's our man. What's going on? Crypto Compassion, thanks for being here. A shout out to you for being a part of the 2-year celebration. I appreciate that a ton. I'm having a little bit of issue with my camera right now, so hang on one second. Come back into this, and hopefully my camera will set up here. Might have to stop the camera for a second and use some audio for a minute. So please like, share, and subscribe. Tofu369. Let's go forward, my friend. All right. So take a look at this. This is, and I want you to pay attention to the date on this article. If you look down here, Lazar here, Bergman. Yeah, Lazar Berman. This is the 22nd of September, 2023. Okay, it is October 11th today. So September 22nd at 7:42 p.m. Okay, this happened before all of this stuff broke out, and most people don't know this. I didn't know this. I want you to know this. All right, Netanyahu tells UN. So he's speaking at the UN that Israel is at the cusp of historic peace with Saudi Arabia. Okay, this is a big announcement, right? With Saudi diplomat in attendance, the prime minister offers a vision of a new Middle East and AI-enabled future, but ignores bitter fight over judicial, and that's a local issue. So, taking the stage Friday at the United Nations General Assembly, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israel is at the cusp of a historic peace agreement with Saudi Arabia. Well, you can read this article. I encourage you to do that. But what I want you to see is this image here. Take a look at this image. You see, it says Israel 1948, and it shows the land, right? And so he's addressing and telling this story of what this looks like. We're on the cusp of this peace deal. Now, if you understand the challenges between the Sunni and Shia Muslims, you know that there is something very, very bitter between that group of folks, as well as them and Israel itself. So this idea that Saudi Arabia is going to be buds. Now take a look at this image right here. The new Middle East. You see that red line? If you watch this video, you notice something? There's in this bottom right-hand corner. Yep, yep, there's the sea. This is Saudi Arabia, and this is Israel. Do you know what that red line is right there? In this new Middle East, what is he talking about? So he does this, in this speech, he talks about, you know, solving peace in the Middle East. And what is the plan? This is actually to provide gas and oil to Europe. So when I saw this and I saw this image and I saw Benjamin Netanyahu draw this red line, he literally writes with a red marker across this, and he's talking about peace in the Middle East and how amazing this is going to be between the Muslim and the Jew. Well, of course, who doesn't get along with Saudi Arabia? Maybe Iran? And if you think about what's happening with Ukraine and everything and the pipelines that were blown up, here is on the 22nd of September, Netanyahu saying, "Hey, we're on the cusp of a historic peace deal with Saudi Arabia." So what is happening? And of course, you could go back to the Abraham Accords. You could go back to Trump and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and you could literally see how and why was this potentially negotiated. Is because there would be a tremendous opportunity to utilize a pipeline directly through Israel to get to Europe. And is there need for that? Cheap energy to Europe? That sounds familiar. And what you don't realize is this happened right before this. Now, let's kind of talk about it. I'm not saying I know the main reason. I mean, there's reasons that have been happening for the last 2,000 years or more. But let's talk about this. It's for me, it's some relatively new information because I didn't realize it had come so clearly at the United Nations meeting. And if you think about what this is essentially Israel wanting to basically bribe, right? And it's it doesn't surprise me in any way, but the business of oil and gas as a means by which they could have an economic relationship. But he put it in a way in that speech that this was going to solve all of these religious issues. Well, what happens when your two biggest enemies, one, your other Muslim brothers who you do not see eye to eye with, and then Israel, which you really don't see eye to eye with, becoming buddies, right? We know that back when Iraq was, basically we got rid of Saddam Hussein, that whole Ba'ath Party was keeping the peace between the Sunni and the Shia. And there was 400 to 800 years of one way of doing things in the Middle East. And all of this got disrupted. And now here is Netanyahu saying, look, we're going to make all this money. Well, who doesn't like that? Well, Iran, the Palestinians, Hezbollah, Hamas, all of these people. And so it made me think about this idea of chaos and the business model of chaos. And you think about this, you're like, hold on. At first glance, what do we see? We see this attack. And then, of course, the opportunity exists for Israel to essentially go, we're going to take you, this is war, and we're going to level you. Well, you think about what would things be easier for Israel if they got rid of, the Gaza Strip and they got rid of Hamas and Palestinians? Well, what would you do if you wanted to have really the moral ability to do it? And I'm not defending the Palestinians in any way. In fact, I actually stand with Israel. But when I see these pieces play out, I'm always cautious because I feel like whatever that mainstream narrative they want you to hear, you have to look deeper into it. And when you see that, hold on a second, there are winners and losers in this one. And this is something that I could see Iran and others wouldn't want to see happen. And that doesn't even count what we'll be talking about in the next couple days as it relates to, the biblical model of what's happening and what this potentially is. But it's amazing to me, you don't have to look too far to see where the money is. And when you think about the economic impacts of, well, how do you negotiate peace in the Middle East? And I think Trump's approach was, hey, it's with the money. And is this the extension of that in hopes that they could have some agreement? Well, there's some folks who are not too happy about that. And I think from a more macro level, the thing I want to communicate, because I've thought a lot about this, and and I think there's some real practical things that are at play here when it comes to this conflict. And this isn't as much about crypto, but about kind of the balance of power in this world stage. If you think about the United States and their US dollar hegemony, there's this dominance of the US dollar, right? So much of people's debt is denominated in dollars. You've got the BRICS countries, you've got Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and now like 40 other groups looking at, BRICS and a potentially, maybe a gold backed or some sort of asset backed currency and a new like SWIFT system, and them seeing that these economic unions with the BRICS nations, because they see the imperialism of the US and the dollar, but they also see things failing. We've got this war between Russia and Ukraine, which is really effectively NATO. And it's interesting to me that that has pushed Russia and China closer together. And of course, we've got Iran, and then we have North Korea, and potentially China and their challenges as it relates to Taiwan and how they see Taiwan. Well, think about this. The election's coming up in 2024, right? November of 2024. You've got one of the weakest presidents of all time who's being essentially run by, I mean, this is an Obama third term kind of thing. It's Obama's people that are behind this. They are clearly supporting Palestinians. And, obviously the money that's being sent over, what Obama did and what's also happened recently. And you think about what kind of needle they're trying to thread. But think about this. If you know that you have to act and you want the best possible opportunity, what would you do? You see the US selling off their strategic oil reserves, so you don't have those reserves. Two, you see them send all their ammunition and all of their money over to Ukraine. You see an absolutely open border. There's like 260,000 people coming through the Texas border last month alone, fighting military age. And you think about this great reset. If you back out and you're like, if there are those who are looking at creating chaos in the world, you have a window of opportunity. You've got a beat down, weak military. You've got poor leadership. You've got chaos. So what would you want to do? You'd want to push it over the edge. And I'm a big fan of like Texas independence. People are like, I don't want to see the United States break apart. Well, where do good people go? And are we past the point of no return? Well, there's a lot of different things at play here. There's obviously the issue of religious issues. There's economic issues. But now there's this, ganging up in the world to say, hey, this imperialistic America, how do we stand up against them? And so it creates unlikely bedfellows. And what's interesting about it is it's shaping up really for what I think ultimately happens, and that is a systematic failure of the West. And it's going to be waged economically and in so many different ways, but really it's the aggregate of the chaos. It's the aggregate that is the effect of basically bankrupting America. Now, from a crypto perspective, you might, if you look just narrowly at the financial side of things, what does this indicate? The money printer's got to be turned back on. I mean, there's just no way you can manage this. Now, you could also say, hey, business of war, there's some good things, from an economic standpoint, growth, right? Because that money's coming into US, military corporations. But as far as the world is concerned, and as far as, a future that is bright, that is equal, is fair, doesn't look like we're getting closer to that. It looks like it's rotting from within. And there are many, many players out there that would want to promote the chaos. So we could dive into each of these things and give our opinions and argue about, you know, why this happened. People, it's, you can get really caught up into it. But what are you doing when you spend brain cycles on these topics? You are essentially doing exactly playing right into their hand. And so what I want to do on this stream is, one, I wanted to establish this idea that all of these things add up to a tremendous amount of noise and chaos. And here we are, feeling bad, things dumping, when is this ever going to recover? And now we've got this war, fear, and worry. And I want to remind you of what the whole point of what we're doing is. And I mentioned David Lee is the key to this, right? What does he say? Hey, let me give you a hug. See, unity is what we know is the key to the future of the new economic system. It's built on community, and it's built on this communication network that grows, right? Metcalfe's law. And how do people find out about these things? But by having relationships with people. And this is the first time that we've been able to take financial products and tie to them benefits that are far beyond just finances, meaning relationships. And because of the communication tools, we have the ability to connect like this in a stream, right? You get to, you know, build friendships in the Hex and Pulse Chain community. And there's real value there. But this future, what we don't have is we don't have this, across the board fair infrastructure. And that's what is the battle is for. Why would people want to censor you? Why is censorship resistance important? Okay, that's a thought that you might want to think about. Why is privacy important in transactions? Right? Well, you have privacy with cash, right? You're not going to have privacy with a CBDC. And then the battle over stablecoins and the battle over, your own autonomy to transact. And, we got social credit scores and, CBDCs and a government wallet and a digital ID. And what's happening is you're going to get to the point where you're going to have no freedom. So what we're doing, and a lot of people don't see this, it's not just about the blockchain, it's about the pulse chain. Let me explain. Everyone in the crypto world, I would say the average crypto bro just wants one Lambo. But there's a guy named Richard Hart, and Richard Hart sees something. He's seen it for a long time. If it was about the money, he would have retired long ago and we wouldn't have Hex or the Pulse Chain. But he realized that, hold on a second, in order for people to have this kind of freedom, because it's being clamped down on so much, there has to be an alternative to the systems that are being created, because the ones that are being created by the centralized players are built around tracking and tracing and all of the things that keep you in check, right? That's why the song Rich Men North of Richmond by Oliver Anthony did so well. They want to know what you think, want to know what you know, right? This is it. This is the battle. The battle is for the hearts and minds of people. They want to be able to control that. And all you have to pay attention to is what they're censoring. So what's at stake here? What are we doing? This, I look at all this stuff and I can dive into it and look at the biblical perspective of what's happening in the Middle East, but I can also back out even further and go, this is chaos that is organized and designed to keep you off center and to keep you from connecting with others. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share with you a clip. It's going to be a little bit, I put it on 1.5, but I've promoted this video. This came out in 1947, and I want you to see, I'm just going to pull a little clip of this. And this, you got to realize, this was done in 1947, right after the end of the war. And it was warning people, it was made by the War Department, warning people of how essentially the Nazis took over and to not ever let it happen again. This couldn't be more poignant for today. So let me share the screen with you. And we're going to watch a little segment of this. This is from 1947. This is called Don't Be a Sucker. And we're only going to look at a couple minutes of this, but listen to this.
He's got a job. And he's got a country called America. It's a wonderful thing to have. America. Lots of room. Room enough to raise plenty of food. Big factories to make things a man can use. Big cities to do the business of a big country. And people Lots of people. Enough to work the farm and build the factories, dig the mines, and run the business. All kinds of people. People from different countries with different religions, different colored skins. Free people. They can live together and work together and build America together because they're free. Free to vote, to say what they please, go to their own churches, to pick their own jobs. Yeah, Mike's got something, all right. He's got America. But there are guys who stay up nights figuring out how to take that away from him.
I want to give you the truth, folks. The truth about America. I know you've got a lot of questions. You want to know why you're not getting the breaks you deserve? Well, I'm not a politician, but I've made it my business to study these things, and I happen to know the facts. My friends, I'm just an average American. But I'm an American, and some of the things I see in this country of ours make my blood boil. I see people with foreign accents making all the money. I see Negroes holding jobs that belong to me and you. Now I ask you, if we allow this thing to go on, what's going to become of us real Americans?
I've heard this kind of talk before, but I never expected to hear it in America.
This fellow seems to know what he's talking about.
Yes, he knows all right.
What's the answer? What are we real Americans going to do about it? You'll find it right here in this little pamphlet. The truth about Negroes and foreigners. The truth about the Catholic Church. Now, friends, these books are free. Paid for by real Americans who want others to know the truth.
Excuse me, young man, but are you actually going to read that stuff?
Sure, why not? You heard what he said, didn't you?
Yes, I heard. Do you believe in that kind of talk?
Oh, makes pretty good sense to me.
I'm speaking to you as an American. And I tell you, friends, we'll never be able to call this country our own until it's a country without. Without what? Yeah, without what? Without Negroes. Without alien foreigners. Without Catholics. Without Freemasons. You know these people.
What's wrong with the Masons? I'm a Mason. Hey, that fellow's talking about me.
And that makes a difference, doesn't it?
These are your enemies. These are the people who are trying to take over our country. Now you know them. You know what they stand for. And it's up to you and me to fight them. Fight them and destroy them before they destroy us. Thank you.
Before he said Masons, you were ready to agree with him.
Yes, but he was talking about... What about those other people?
But in this country, we have no other people. We are American people, all of us.
What about you? You aren't American, are you?
I was born in Hungary, but now I'm an American citizen. And I have seen what this kind of talk can do. I saw it in Berlin.
What were you doing there?
I was a professor at the university. I heard the same words we have heard today. But I was a fool then. I thought Nazis were crazy people, stupid fanatics. But unfortunately, it was not so. You see, they knew that they were not strong enough to conquer a unified country. So they split Germany into small groups. They used prejudice as a practical weapon to cripple the nation. Of course, that was not easy to do. They had to work hard to do it. You see, we human beings are not born with prejudices. Always they are made for us, made by someone who wants something. Remember that when you hear this kind of talk. Somebody is going to get something out of it, and it isn't going to be you. This is not classroom theory. I saw it happen. I saw it first in Berlin in 1932. 5 young men that I knew were standing in the crowd listening to the Nazi speaker. Eric was a Catholic. Anton, a student of mine, was a Jew. Heinrich owned a small hardware store. Karl was a farmer. And Hans was an unemployed metal worker.
To all true alien Germans, I say it is time you inherited the nation which rightfully belongs to you. To you alone belongs the glorious destiny of the greater Germany. The Nazi Party will provide land for the farmer, work for the worker, and profit for the small businessman. Who is getting these things now? The Jew. The Jew who has stolen our nation and our birthright. Who makes all the money and takes all our jobs? The Jew! He must be shunned. He must be ostracized. He must be eliminated. And the Catholics. We don't want our great nation run by a foreign church. We Germans will know what to do with these people when the time comes. They and their faith must be destroyed. Then there are the Freemasons. In Germany, we have no place for secret societies. There may be only one society, and that is the Nazi Party. There may be no secrecy about that in the new greater Germany.
One by one, he attacked each minority, and he split them off one from the other. These men were all fellow Germans when they came here today. Now they were split into rival groups, suspicious of each other, hating each other. They were being swindled, all of them. But the man who was really being fooled was Hans. He was pure German, according to Nazi standards. To him, they promised everything, and he fell for it.
All right. We could go into a lot more detail. You can watch this about 17 minutes long. I encourage you to watch Don't Be a Sucker from 1947. But I point that out to say history repeats itself. And what are we seeing? We're seeing this across the United States, the redefinition of everything, the factions, and basically putting one group up against another and telling you who you ought to hate, or creating such a chilling effect that you don't say anything at all. I want you to realize that this is the chaos and there is someone who will win. This is done for a reason. The hope that I have and the hope that I want to bring to you through Crypto Heartbeat and this whole channel is the fact that there is hope. And that hope is actually interestingly personified in our community. I go to these hex events. I talk about it all the time. I go to these hex events and I'm like, hey, Crypto Heartbeat. And people from all walks of life, people from every race, every religion, every orientation are high-fiving. Now, that was the bull market, and I know some people are eating each other alive right now, so I'll extend some grace there. But the beauty of it is I see something special within this community as it relates to relationships and consideration. Okay, one of the things that's at the very core of money, at least in this era since 1972, is the fact that we believe in our money because it's a decreed value. And if there's anything that it's based on the good faith and credit of the United States of America. And what is that? But that's you and me. That's our labor. And so the government's very comfortable reaching into our pockets and taking money out, right, through taxation and through inflation. But what's really interesting is we're sitting at this moment in time that if we were willing to put aside these differences and we were to come together, well, that's naturally happening. And a guy like Richard Hart, who defends freedom of speech and freedom of movement, what we're seeing is that what many have saw as an incredible financial product is way, way, way more than that. Because if you can have essentially a shared prosperity by decreeing your own value, you gain all the benefits of community with it. And to me, that is the most beautiful thing I've seen, because it's the antidote to this type of chaos. It's the antidote, because what is this chaos? It's about who has and who had the haves and have nots. And so I'm pointing out this person's taking this from you. That's the whole point. That's how they do this. That's how they divide. It's how they create this chaos. Look at these differences. And to think that we have this opportunity where no centralized players, no governments are the ones that are issuing these things, but we as in community are decreeing our own value together. That's a really, really powerful idea. And it's one that's at the very, very core of the Richard Hart ecosystem. Why? When I look out into crypto and I look at founders and I look at those people that are out there, what do I see? Do I see someone who's principled, that has a vision for the future, that sees people as the end goal and game? The community is the legacy? I asked Richard Hart that. That's what he told me. I could play the clip. This is the reason that it's being done. Well, what does that mean to the world? Because what is Hex and PulseX and what are these things but infrastructure of a more sovereign future? But it can't be sovereign unless it's fully decentralized, and it is not incrementally becoming controlled by authoritarians and centralized players. And that's what we're seeing happen to Bitcoin and Ethereum. This is our opportunity. You know, it's funny. You think about, well, what if we had our own nation and let's go get our own island and do this? We're doing that right now, and you don't have to move a foot. We're doing that. We're creating digital nations. We're coming together in unity around something and decreeing its value. Because when you take the money that is a proxy of your own labor, a piece of you, and you put it into the contract, right now you don't see that as a part of you. Your hard-earned money becomes this monetary proxy, gets converted into ETH, goes over the bridge, ends up, you buy some Pulse, and maybe you buy some Texan or some PHAX or whatever it is that you buy. It's still an extension of you. It's just gone through these hoops. It's still you. It's still your creative ability. What happens when a group of people comes together with that creative ability? Well, Metcalfe's law says when it grows 10x, the price goes up to the square, which is 100x. Why are we seeing such an incredible opportunity in crypto? Because it's the beginning. And it is growing. But what is its real promise? Its promise isn't just that you would have financial security, which I think, most of us would say, hey, that's a good thing. But what it really represents is a changing of the very nature of the financial system. I say this all the time. I've got it memorized. This is the first time in human history where political power and financial power have been separated. Raoul Pal is the first one I ever heard say that. And I will always give him credit for it. We are building digital nations. Why would we want to come into a community with like minds, with complete acceptance, even if you see it as tolerance, that we high five with our fellow brothers and Hex and Pulse and PulseX and Texan and Ophir and whatever else it is. But on the Pulse chain, realize that what we're doing is we're actually building the fundamental framework for the future of sovereignty and freedom financially. And what does it mean when regular people have resources? That's where the power is, right? That's the issue, is that people in the past have controlled those resources. They've controlled the money printers. Folks, the infrastructure of DeFi, true DeFi, right? Freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of privacy, freedom to transact is embodied in the Pulse chain ecosystem. And if Hart's law is true, which I know it is, that things that are bonded in pairs move together, think about this. Whatever your favorite token is that's on the Pulse chain, it is likely paired with PLS. PLS, let's say it sits at 4 zeros and a 4. What happens when that does 1,000x, 10,000x? It gets to be a penny, let's say. The things that are bonded in pairs move together. If you are ever in a position, you could never do this. Let's say you created a token on Ethereum versus one on Pulse chain, and you took the same amount of money. So let's just use $100,000 of liquidity, and you bonded it with your token, and you created a price on Ethereum. And you did the same thing, $100,000 worth of PLS, and you tied that with $100,000 of your new token. Same exact thing, same amount of money on two chains. What happens when PLS, which has just begun, right, fresh, brand new, what happens when that bonded pair moves and potentially moves to 100x, 1000x, maybe even a 10,000x or more? That's why you get these kind of movements, right? Because things that are bonded together in pairs move together. That's Hart's law. So what ends up happening is your $100,000 of PLS now just went up in price, maybe 100x, maybe 1,000x. Well, what does that do to the price of the token it's paired with? There are other factors in this, right? More buyers and sellers. I understand that, the growth of the market, but that's all a factor in it. But most people don't realize you're not going to see a 10,000x in Ethereum. You're certainly not going to see it in Bitcoin. You might see it in Pulse chain. But what it means for the broader group is that once this thing starts moving, it all starts moving together. And that's the thing where I don't want people to lose hope, because there's so many things that are tied to this being successful. We have all these builders, all these influencers, all these people that get it. Please understand, this is absolutely could be one of the fundamental infrastructure components of the new financial system. And literally, Richard Hart wants to get the glory. He may just get the glory. How and why? Because he won't compromise his principles and go along with the incremental nature of aligning yourself with centralized corporate parties. I hope you see what I'm saying. So, why is there a business model in chaos? Because if I can take you out of the game, you can't be an opposition to me. I can keep you off center and I can just move my way through. And so whether it's in Israel, all of these things about war and everything, is there somebody that wins? But this asymmetry that's being created in nations, and whether it be with healthcare or anything like that, is happening right here between people, blue and red. There's a reason in the Bible that says that the battle is not between flesh and blood. Why? But that's exactly what they want you to see. They want you to see flesh and blood and fight with flesh and blood, because that makes you ineffective. Don't be ineffective. You're a part of something special. And folks, it will get better. And I'll tell you what, we are building the alternative to the CBDCs. And that's going to be in a place where it's truly censorship resistant. True DeFi is going to thrive. And to me, it's a hope as infrastructure for the world. Is it solve all the problems? No. But a new economic order is coming, because this fiat-based fractional reserve banking system is about to fail. And there's a lot of enemies of it who want to push it over the edge, and they will even work together. We think that their religious views are the things that are the most primary, maybe to the jihadists, but to the majority of people, they're like, if we can knock those guys off, I'm in. And so when Benjamin Netanyahu stands in front of the UN and draws a big red line all the way through Saudi Arabia, all the way through Israel, and say, hey, look, we could get the money by providing oil and gas to Europe instead of Russia. Let's be friends. And, oh, by the way, so that's one side of it. And then the other group on the other side, which is Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, all of those players and all the other BRICS types of nations are going to say, hey, we got a weak group. And folks, we don't know what's coming in 2024. So I would not be surprised if more chaos is to come. Because if you're China or you're North Korea or you're Iran, you don't want to mess with whoever's next in the White House. Because the person that's next in the White House might not put up with your shenanigans. But folks, I think that it is destined to fail. It's just like Rome, right? Ultimately, it comes back to people not paying off their sovereign debt. And at the end of the day, that's going to be the ultimate Achilles heel of this. So folks, that's the chaos business model. And if you want to look into it, you can follow the money. But I want you to understand that you're actually, by participating in this ecosystem and supporting the folks that are talking about the pulse chain, is that actually this is real hope for a future of a new economic system. And that new economic system is one in which supports the equality of people and does not have centralized players monkeying with the rules. And to me, that's a good thing. That's a really good thing. Let's get back in the chat and then we will sign off today. Thanks for joining. I appreciate you so much. Let's see if let's see what we got in here. Number of good folks. Kay Hudson, what's going on? Good to see you. Thanks for being here. Hexforce 1, Crypto Ethos, Wild Times, brother. But God, there you go. Follow the money. Amen to that. Clear out Gaza like Maui got cleared out. You know, and it's really interesting to me. I'm always cautious about what I see, right? You know, what are false flags or whatever. I'm not saying I know the answer, but I'm just really cautious about what this model is because, you know, this is a terrible thing. If in fact these things are true, I mean, it's barbaric. These are war crimes, right? And of course, the way it's being presented is, hey, we're going to literally wipe, you know, Gaza off the map. And they're pretty much doing that, right? Total siege on it. I'm really interested on how Iran reacts. They basically said, hey, we're not in this. I'm really interested to see, you know, this is going to get worse. This is going to get worse before it gets better. Magnus, what's going on? Godfather J6 back again. Thanks so much for all of your support for all of these 2 years. MT Coiners in the house. Good to see you. Crypto Bigfoot's here. Michael Freeman in Australia. Thanks for joining us. Mobius, what's going on? Drix is like 100%. I hope that's 100% for coming on the channel with the camera and talking about what you do, because I know people would be blessed to hear what you're up to, Drix. Walter Crofts, hello from Wexford, Ireland. Oh, here's Ireland. Here's the bloody sea, right? Remember that whole, if it's not Scottish, it's crap. Yeah, people always confused over here about where is Ireland and where is Scotland, and they're idiots. And you can probably relate to that. Michael Freeman, Australia is also a battleground against those who want to crush the little people. As a baby boomer in my 70s, I've been fighting the anti-freedom movement for decades. It's and the woke culture is just like the cherry on top, man. And of course, you know, drawing you off sides and all of these things, like getting you fighting with each other. You know, that's what I think is so interesting about Texas independence. And speaking of that, we've got the man, Sam Kemp, right? What is he? You know, here's Sam. He's got great grandkids, right? And he sees a future, and he sees Texas independence as a way in which he could have a better future for his grandkids and great grandkids. And I respect that a ton. What does he see? And I think about this is like, I don't think if I really press Sam Kemp, he would say, yeah, I don't think any person that is liberal should have a seat at the table in the new Texas. I don't think that at all. Actually, I think what he would say is this system has gotten so out of control, it's not fair for anyone. And what's, I think, amazing about people in America, at least, is that the idea of America was this idea that you had these freedom to speak your mind, that you had this freedom to transact, you had this freedom to have private property, you had this freedom to worship, and there was a respect for that. And that I see Texas independence as a preservation of really what made America truly great, right? The origin of it is to say, this needs to be fair. We need to return it to popular control. It needs to not be a two-tier justice system. It needs to truly be blind faith or blind justice, if you will. And so when I see that, I look at it and I go, you know, what is the biggest argument? What do people want to come back? Well, they say, well, it's just a bunch of white supremacists who want their own nation. Well, that's more of the same stuff, folks. It's amazing who I see that supports Texas independence. These are people who are like, I'm fed up with the fact that I don't have the ability to make my own decisions. And, you know, I think what that promise looks like, it's unfortunate that people are more willing to suffer than change, because the change is then the opportunity we could do very peacefully. I do believe that crypto plays a role in that, and that's why we tokenized Texan Token with the TNM. There is a future, but we have to speak it into existence. And so, hey, right now we're focused on this future, and it is chaotic. But keep your eyes fixed up, because I'll tell you what, everybody wants to draw you off sides. David Lee, Tail 7, you look a lot younger, Matt. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. Maybe it's Maybelline. I don't know. Actually, what's funny, you know what it really is? I'm going to be completely honest with you. So there's a new feature in StreamYard, and it is what is called touch up appearance. And I think what it does is it smooths my rosacea out. So you've noticed it. Maybe it's Maybelline. I appreciate you saying that, though. Liberty or death. Support Crypto Heartbeat by hitting the like, sharing, and buying Texan Token. Hey, I'm not shilling Texan Token. You know why? One, it's not appropriate thing to do to comment about Texan Token and price as a founder. But what I know about this is the people that are involved in this community is the key, right? Building community is the key to it. Everything else will take care of itself at the appointed time. Meaning, I just talked about Hart's Law. Just talked about, Metcalfe's law, right? The growth of the communication network, the square of that is the price. It'll take care of itself. We're bonded correctly, and let's see it move together. And that's what we're hoping for. So keep your eye on the prize, folks. Don't be, don't nuke your account, like Brandon always says. Don't nuke your account. But realize what you're supporting is worth supporting. And what you're supporting isn't just, let's defend Richard Hart against the SEC. That's a piece of it. It's really about the fundamental principles of saying, we are not going to compromise and be bought out and sell out to centralized parties and players. And there needs to be alternative. When it all gets sorted out, the Pulse chain will be left standing with a man of principle and its leadership, and the glory will come. And I think what is amazing is, there's a term, you've probably heard this before, whether you read your Bible or not. It says, pride cometh before a fall. What does that mean? Pride cometh before a fall. Well, think about this. Some people would say Richard Hart was a genius, right? He did this intentionally, right? He set up this prideful, twerking, Louis Vuitton, buying everything when everybody's getting wrecked, showing off, being crass as a tool, right, to play them at their own game. I think that's pretty generous. But also this idea that nothing can touch me, and then it makes people want to come after you more. So the interesting thing is humble Richard. What comes out of being humbled, right? Is it just a new marketing strategy, or is it actually the result of something? Because I think what's really amazing is the early Richard of hearing this one, that I need a Nobel Prize and I need the respect from these people. Well, he has the respect from the people who matter, and that's us. And when I asked him seriously, he was like, yeah, it's the people, it's the community. That is the legacy of all this, because the real value keeps going on and on, whether the price goes up or not, because David Lee will give you a hug. Do you understand? That's what it's about. These things will come and go, but we're building something that is so significant that could literally make a difference for your kids and your grandkids, even yours if you're young, and Sam Kemp's great grandkids. That's incredible. And that's the kind of stuff that this is all about. But without vision, the people perish. And so let's get this SEC stuff behind us and let's see Humble Richard be a vision caster, somebody who defends privacy, movement, freedom of association, freedom of privacy, and freedom to transact. Because money is the major battlefield of that. And then let's put in the infrastructure for the future, for countries, for everyone. But it's got to have a place. It's got to have roads to run on. It has to have rails, and those rails are the pulse chain. Boom. That's what I have to say about that. I guess you're rugged. Hey, David Lee is very generous with the hugs. I say it many times. We were in an Uber together, and I walk out to go into the Bellagio, and I look back, and he's hugging the Uber driver. So that gives you any idea what kind of guy he is. Driggs, a hug from David Lee will extend your life. You know, there needs to be like David Lee things like there are Chuck Norris things, right? Like what a hug from David Lee will do for you. It will extend your life by 57 years. We need a whole like series of those things. It'll be like the roundhouse kick from, oh my gosh, this is so good. It's so good. I love David Lee. Support it. All right. Thanks, guys, for joining the Pulse today. My name is Matt. This is Crypto Heartbeat. Do not let your heart be troubled, and do not mess with Texas. Take care, everybody. We'll catch you tomorrow, where we'll be talking about some of the details. We're going to hear from Steve Staggs. And then on Friday, we're going to go deep. We got a guest, an additional guest on Friday on Right Side Up with Steve Staggs, Steve's buddy, the Regular Joe. See you guys. Take care.